All right, Rob, if you start us off with the third step prayer, sir, we'll get started.
Okay, the third step prayer, which you can find on page 63 of your big book. And hopefully everybody's got their big book handy. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Excellent. Okay, we are at the top of page XXII. In other words, we are at the foreword to the third edition. So if we'll go ahead and get started there, Rob.
Okay. Forward to the third edition. By March 1976, when this edition went to the printer, the total worldwide membership of Alcoholics Anonymous was conservatively estimated at more than 1 million, with almost 28,000 groups meeting up in over 90 countries.
Yep. And so we're growing at this point in time, we're growing by leaps and bounds. It's really gotten expanded in the numbers, not only in the numbers of individuals, but also the numbers of groups and the different countries that they've got involved as well. 90 countries. If you can imagine that small New York office taking in all of all those requests and finding out that they've got people from different countries requesting the book and the information that they had. It had to be quite daunting. So, um, Rob?
Yeah, just notice the different tone in this. This forward was not written by Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson had died in 71, so he had no part in this. Just notice a different tone because it is being written by somebody totally different. It's probably written by the GSO, which means that an awful lot of other people have their hands in it. Surveys of groups in the United States and Canada indicate that AA is reaching out not only to more and more people, but to a wider and wider range. Women now make up more than one-fourth of the membership. Among newer members, the proportion is nearly one-third. 7% of the AA surveyed are less than 30 years of age. Among them, many in their teens.
So another thing here is that we have is the demographics. Obviously, they've got it's not just a men's group, which I'm assuming at the very beginning was largely mostly men. They've got women now, and the newer members are even younger, the 7%. I wonder what it is today with the younger members of AA, what it would be, and less than 30 years of age. I was, I, my son is alcoholic, and he has, and I have talked about this. It's difficult at a young age to be looking at this long life ahead of you and thinking to you and imagining that it's going to be without alcohol. When you look at other people that have gone most, if not all of their life drinking and trying to give it up at such a young age is a very kind of the dynamics of that is much more it's just different than if you were in your say you were 60 years old and finally had succumbed to the fact that you were alcoholic and needed to give it up. You know, you're not looking quite as much in front of you that you can look behind you and say you had a whole life with alcohol. And I know that sounds, I don't know how that sounds, but it doesn't sound necessarily good. But the bottom line is that what I've tried to do and convince him of is that he's going to be healthier and happier throughout the rest of his life, as opposed to being drunk and in a fog and potentially have the health problems that those that have drank excessively for the most of their life. So there's some real benefit to recognizing early on that you're an alcoholic and doing something about it. I think that's shows a lot of strength in the youth that when they're able to do that, it's quite amazing. Rob?
And Leo, that's pretty much why, it takes so long for people to come in. they're trying to learn how to control and enjoy it, not realizing they'll never be able to. I resisted it, tried so many things that, well, I won't drink today. But then tomorrow I'm rewarding myself because I didn't drink today. And we try all these different things, and who wants to and it even says in the big book, who wants to admit to themselves that they were really alcoholics?
Yeah.
I came into the fellowship thinking they would teach me how to control and enjoy my drinking. That's I didn't. What else are they going to do? I didn't realize that abstinence was the only acceptable thing that I can do. And that took me a long time to figure out. Because I came into the rooms, I read the steps on the walls, I saw the tradition, but nobody told me that I could never safely take another drink. It took a long time before somebody opened up the big book to me and said, you know what? You're suffering from an allergy, phenomenal craving. Anytime you take alcohol into your body, triggers, and your body wants more and more. So the only thing you can do, Rob, is never take another drink. What? I thought you were going to teach me. Disappointment written on the poor young man's face. Well, I wasn't a young man when I came in, but that's the whole thing. Like I notice a lot of younger people coming into the rooms, which is fantastic. Women make up any group that I've been into. Women make up at least 50%, if not more. And it's fantastic to see because they say in the book that women become alcoholics a lot quicker than men. Hopefully and they can get the help that, in the 1930s, it was very difficult for a woman to come into AA. Why? Because what are her motives? Is she here to steal our men? That's what the other wives thought, so Dee Dee, it can be difficult, can't it? The basic principles of the AA program, it appears, hold good for individuals with many different lifestyles. Just as the program has brought recovery to those of many different nationalities, the 12 steps that summarize the program may be called Los Dos Pesos in one country, Les Douze Etapes in another, but they trace exactly the same path to recovery that was blazed by the earliest members of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah, so it's recognizing a couple of things, the different lifestyles of those that are in the program, as opposed to say what may have been early on, the largely men and such. And then different nationalities. Again, just a nod to the fact that they've been doing different things in a lot of different countries. And the one thing that holds true for all of it is it's exactly the same path, exactly the same 12 steps, and exactly the same program. So that doesn't change just because it's a different lifestyle or different nationality. So I think that what is important here is that they're just, like I said, they're growing by leaps and bounds. They're expanding and having influence over a lot of different people in a lot of different countries, which again is is something that they saw at the beginning, whereas we're not seeing it so much now these days. Rob?
Yep. The one of the biggest things is, as Leo said, the literature in other languages. It's opened up a whole new field for people that, let's be honest, we in the Americas, and I'm going to talk about North America, US, and Canada, we just assume everything is in English. We take it for granted because no matter where we go, people talk to, we go to France. They don't like it, but they will talk to you in English. And in a lot of other countries. Why? Because a lot of the American people travel. And when they travel, they have some money. So we get spoiled in the fact that our language is usually spoken in a lot of places. There's very few places we go that somebody doesn't speak English. Especially businesses, etc. So we're spoiled, but other people don't have that. They aren't always brought up that way. In Mexico, France, different places. This, you know, being able to read in your own language has got to be one of the greatest gifts that AA has done. And to be able to have the pamphlets and everything like that, just to get those. In spite of the great increase in the size and the span of this fellowship, at its core, it remains simple and personal. Each day, somewhere in the world, recovery begins when one alcoholic talks with another alcoholic, sharing experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah, and this is just kind of a nice exclamation mark, if you will, or good, just solid punctuation that the fact is one alcoholic working with another, a 12th step that we refer to so many times, and has already been referred to a couple of times since starting the book. So it is just indicative of the program, the process, and the approach, and that is carrying this message forward to other alcoholics is the core of recovery and the life of sobriety. Rob?
Yeah. Now, if you remember from the first two forwards, okay, we was used many, many times. In this forward, we was never used once. So the tone is just a little bit different, just a little bit. So we're on page XXIII, forward to the fourth edition. This fourth edition of Alcoholics Anonymous came off the press in November 2001, at the start of a new millennium. Since the third edition was published in 1976, worldwide membership of AA had just about doubled to an estimated 2 million or more, with nearly 100,800 groups meeting in approximately 150 countries around the world.
Yeah, so I would call this again a leaps and bounds growth spurt, even though it took them about 25 years or so to get to where they are. That's still a doubling of the individuals, but the groups themselves has almost by a fourfold increase, and again almost a doubling of the countries. But again, imagine, if you will, the different languages that they were converting the book into, as well as some of the books getting out there and being in English in a non-English focused country. But again, this is just showing the amount of growth that's going on, and the acknowledgement that they are just still trying to keep up with the current times in publishing this fourth edition that we're working from. Rob?
Yeah, and I put it in the chat, but it's been updated. I think it's approximately a couple of years old. So it's about 2022, that there are more than 123,000 AA groups around the world, and it's been translated into over 100 languages. But membership is still at about 2 million people. I don't know whether other groups, whether, NA, et cetera, have siphoned off some people that would normally be in our group, or whether we are stagnating and we're not growing. I'm not sure exactly why that is. But AA is not growing, or whether Zoom has taken such a part that a lot of people are not recognized as members of AA. A lot of things need to be checked out. Literature has played a major role in AA's growth, and a striking phenomenon of the past quarter century has been the explosion of translations of our basic literature into many languages and dialects. In country after country where the AA seed was planted, it has taken root, slowly at first, then growing by leaps and bounds when literature has become available. Currently, Alcoholics Anonymous has been translated into 43 languages.
I guess now more than how many languages now? I think more than
Over
7.
100.
Oh, 100, more than 100.
More
So
than 100.
that's again that's a doubling again of that, and that's quite an accomplishment. More than 100 different languages. That's quite amazing that this book has been translated into. But nonetheless, they are just talking about um, uh, the explosion of growth at the time, and how they've been growing in the period since the third edition. Rob?
Yeah, there's a little asterisk at the bottom saying that in 2000, in my book, it says in 2019, Alcoholics Anonymous is in 71 languages. So in a few years, they've gone up to over 100. It's incredible. As the message of recovery has reached larger numbers of people, it has also touched the lives of a vastly greater variety of suffering alcoholics. When the phrase, "we're people who normally would not mix," page 17 of this book, was written in 1939, it referred to a fellowship composed largely of men and a few women with quite similar social, ethnic, and economic backgrounds. Like so much of A's basic text, those words have proved to be far more visionary than the founding members could ever have imagined. The stories added to this edition represent a membership whose characteristics of age, gender, race, and culture have widened and have deepened to encompass virtually everyone the first 100 members could have reached,
Oh
could
yeah,
have hoped to reach.
right. And I can only imagine what it was like to be a part of this at the very beginning and thinking in terms of where they are, and being able to carry this forward, and the amount of people that have been able to reach in different socioeconomic backgrounds now, and uh, and it is probably exceeded, if those folks were still alive at that point, would have exceeded all their expectations as to what this actually did and continues to do today. Rob?
Yeah, Bill had a hard time getting this book written. The people in Akron didn't want a book written. They thought the word of mouth program that they were doing, everything was going fine. But Bill's whole idea is that, it's going to take us years to get this word of mouth program out of Akron. Okay. So he wanted to get a book out, and thank God he was able to, to talk people into it, because without this book, where would we be today? As I say, the founding members, Dr. Bob and the people in Akron, they could care less about the book, or so it seemed, anyways. And, Hank Parkhurst and the people in New York thought it was so important to get this word out that they fought tooth and nail. They tried to raise money. They tried to beg, borrow, and steal from as many people as they could in order to get this book done. And thank God, you know what? Hank Parkhurst, you know, made sure that, Bill kept going with this book. Hi, Linda, we're on page XXIV right at the top. While literature has preserved the integrity of the A message, sweeping changes in society as a whole are reflected in new customs and practices within the fellowship. Taking advantage of technological advances, for example, A members with computers can participate in meetings online, sharing with fellow alcoholics across the country or around the world. In any meeting, anywhere, A share experience, strength, and hope with each other in order to stay sober and help other alcoholics. Modem to modem or face to face, A speak the language of the heart in all its power and simplicity.
Yes, technology certainly has really exploded here over the last 5 years, and Zoom, especially, it seems like, is the predominant platform that people use to join in these meetings. I know there's others, but it just seems to me that Zoom is the one that most people use. But there again, no matter what form of delivery vehicle that you're using with regard to getting into a meeting, participating in the program, and being a part of the fellowship, it is still the same. It's the same 12 steps. It's the same program, and it's still the same idea, is to carry this message from one alcoholic to another. Rob?
Leo, we talk about the new ways of communicating. Zoom opened up a whole new world for me. I can tell you that. When the pandemic hit, I was going to meetings. I was opening up a couple of meetings that I would go to, make the coffee, put the chairs out, do all the service work that I could get my hands on. Meetings I went to were all speaker meetings, all speaker. They would talk about how much they drank, how much more they drank than I ever did, how they spilt more than I ever did. But I'll be honest with you, they never talked about how they found God. They never talked about a spiritual experience. If you went to the meetings that I went to, you would think that all you had to do was come to a fellowship meeting, sit in a chair, and everything would be fine. That kept me sober for a little bit of time. Okay, it wasn't until the Zoom meetings came along and I was able to find big book meetings and find out every day, what am I suffering from? Allergy, phenomenal craving, and the obsession of the mind. You know, Now, how do I get this fixed? Little spiritual experience. I had to change. Okay, my ideas, motives, and ideas had to be completely changed. Okay, I learned this, but I wasn't learning this in a fellowship. You know, Twice a week I had a home group. One night of the week it would be Fear and Strength and Hope. Somebody would tell their story, and the other was the 12 and 12. The 12 and 12 does not have the program. Okay. This book has the program. And so I am grateful for all the incredible people that I've met through Zoom that have been able to teach me about what is in this book. It's opened up a whole new world for me. Now I'm looking at history and learning about all the people that are there, at the beginning and what they went through in order to get this book. It's fascinating. Instead of being bored going to meetings, I'm enthusiastic about it. And I want to share as much as I can with people. So that's what I love about Zoom. Whatever happened to Skype, Leo?
Yeah,
Skype was around before Zoom, but never hear about Skype anymore, eh?
sure don't. Sure don't.
Oh, well. And the forward to the fourth edition mentions we once, and it's as a footnote. Bill Wilson was so much a we program type of person. Okay, he knew he was an egomaniac. He knew that he had to keep his ego in check. So everything was we. Always giving credit to other people. Dr. Bob, you know, Dr. Young, Dr. Silkworth, Reverend Dowling, you know, anybody that he could think of, you know, he was given credit to in order to take the light off himself. And you got to give Bill credit for that, realizing that, who he is. Remember, we're going to talk about in this book that we are selfish and self-centered to the core, and we have to change. Okay, so Bill kept giving all this credit to everybody else. Now we're going to go into the doctor's opinion. Leo, anything you want to say about the doctor's opinion before we start?
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about Dr. Silkworth if you wanted to kind of introduce that, and you can back me up before we start reading and everything. But Dr. Silkworth is what his name is William D. Silkworth. He was born 22 June of 1873. He died 22 March of 1951, and he actually did quite well early on in life. And then after the stock market crash, he actually had been retired and came out of retirement and started working at Towns Hospital in New York City, which the Towns Hospital itself closed in 1965. So that's a little bit beyond where I was wanting to go here. But Dr. Silkworth actually came out of retirement, and that's when he started his work at Towns Hospital. And thank goodness that he did. But uh, I guess, do you have anything else to add about Dr. Silkworth, Rob?
Well, you know what? He didn't feel that he was saving too many people at Towns Hospital. He was working with a lot of people, but nobody got cured. We know that nowadays, that we were never cured. We have a reprieve, based on our spiritual connection. You know, so it must have been frustrating for him to see all these people coming and going. Because in Hank Parker's story, The Unbeliever, he talks about going into the hospital 10 times. We read in the book about the person went into the hospital 6 times, and each time we visited her. You know, Bill Wilson, we know he was in Town's hospital 4 times. It's like a revolving door. They would go in to the hospital or to the treatment center. They would get, filled up with drugs, etc., in order to detox, get all the alcohol out of the system, and then be let go after about 5 days. Only to nothing changes. What changed? What changed for Bill every time he went in? He learned a few things about it. He learned that, you know, he might get wet brain and he might get delirium tremens. He might. Okay, so that sobered him up. He might be put into an asylum. That fear kept him sober for a short period of time, but not a long period of time. We also learned that people in the book, they started doing the process and then realized that they were okay. So they stopped, and the result was nil. You know, so it had to be frustrating for this poor little man. And I say little man because he was about 5'4". Bill Wilson was 6'3". He's 5'4", 5'6". Compared to Bill Wilson, he was a little guy, and it must have been so funny to see the height difference between those two guys. But you know what? For someone that cares and that gives all this in them, you know, to care for people, only to see them come back in worse shape than they were last time. And you know, he learned about the allergy. He talked to Bill about it, and all these incredible things. Thank God for Dr. Silkworth. That's all I can say. We are on page XXV, the doctor's opinion. We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be interested in a medical estimate of the plan of recovery described in this book. Convincing testimony must surely come from medical men who have had experience with the sufferings of our members and have witnessed our return to health. A well-known doctor, chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in alcohol and drug addiction, gave Alcoholics Anonymous this letter. Anything you want to say about the first part, Leo?
Well, just a couple of things. This is, the convincing testimony. That would be expert testimony. The experiences with the sufferings. I think that's an interesting word that they use of our members, and suffering from the affliction of alcoholism, and not only that, but the witnessing of return to health, which is showing the success that can be had by following this program. This is basically a paragraph validating the Dr. Silkworth and what he's about to say. Rob?
Yeah, no. Why did they want a letter from somebody? Is to validate, what they're about to say. No, it was this Dr. Esther Richards that suggested to Bill and to Hank Parker that they get expert testimony to back up what they're saying. And this first paragraph that I just read was written by Bill Wilson. Now we're going to come into the doctor's letter. To whom it may concern, and this letter was written July 27, 1938, and the original idea was that it was going to be sent out to donors who were supposed to give money. I have specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. In late 1934, I attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of the type I had come to regard as hopeless. In the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conception to other alcoholics. impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. This has become the basis of the rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. This man and over 100 others appear to have recovered.
Okay, a couple of things here. First, you're right. This letter was written on June 27th of 1938. It was meant to be an endorsement of the book, and it certainly is. The patient that they're talking about, obviously, is Bill Wilson, and the when he talks about hopeless, it's the state of mind and body. And then he said in the course of his third treatment, he acquired certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. This is not something that the Dr. Silkworth, gave him. This came from Ebby and some others, if I got that right, Rob. The idea of the program and carrying the message forward. So at this point in time, they convinced Dr. Silkworth to allow them to come in free of charge, no money, and start using the same thing that helped Bill recover, to start working with other alcoholics at Towns Hospital to do that. Rob?
Excellent. I personally know scores of cases who were of the type with whom other methods had failed completely. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group. They may mark a new epoch in annals of alcoholism. These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. You may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. Yours very truly, William D. Silkworth, MD.
And so a couple of things is they know of cases who were of the type of whom had failed, other methods had failed completely, meaning from a medical standpoint, and the facts appear to be extreme medical importance because of the extraordinary possibilities of rapid growth inherent in this group. So it's just showing that the doctor is willing to admit that some of the medical procedures and approaches failed, and that this program was able to reach when other methods couldn't. Rob?
Yeah, no, as you can see, the doctor's name is used here. And the doctor's name wasn't added until the second edition, 1955, the first printing. Dr. Silkworth was dead by that time. Dr. Silkworth had died. You know, one of the reasons might be they didn't want to endorse a treatment center, or it could be that Dr. Silkworth felt that, you know, he was putting his name on the line. I believe that a lot of it comes down to that the book didn't want to endorse Towns Hospital, or it seemed like they were endorsing one group over another group. The physician who, at our request, gave us his letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. In this statement, he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. It did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent with some of us, but we were sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete.
Yeah, so I guess the idea here is that one, they're going to actually have Dr. Silkworth write an even longer letter that we will read here in just a minute. The second thing is that he's introducing the idea of this mental and physical defective kind of place that people are in. and it wants to make sure that we emphasize the mental and the physical, and not just the mental, but really, really the physical side of things as part of this sickness, this disease. And I'm sorry, that's not, we're not calling it a disease, just this ailment.
Call it a malady. It's
Malady.
easier that way.
Yeah, thank you. Rob, I'll go ahead and turn it back over
We don't
to,
want to get in trouble with the doctors, so
yeah.
we use malady. It's much easier to say that way. At least that's what Bill said. And here we're going to come up with one of the most important points in the book. Okay, so you know what? We can't hammer this home enough to people. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. As laymen, our opinion as to its soundness may, of course, mean little, but as ex-problem drinker, we can say that its explanation makes good sense. It explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account.
Yeah, and so you can imagine the debate that they were having back then with regard to what it was that they could, to be able to put their finger on alcoholism and say, this is what alcoholism is. And I'm sure that early on that question came up and was very difficult to answer. But when Dr. Silkworth entered the picture and became a part of the program, that obviously helped, and they were able to formulate this idea of the allergy that we're talking about currently, and calling it as such. Um, Rob?
Yeah, I just put on allergy, an exaggerated or disease-like reaction to substances or physical states that are without comparable effect on the average individual. Now, when I was first heard this allergy, I thought, "God, I don't break out in hives. I don't get a swollen tongue. These are I couldn't understand it. But how, maybe allergy is not the greatest way of explaining it, but, it's an abnormal reaction. We alcoholics have an abnormal reaction once we ingest alcohol. We want more. And, whether you use allergy or something else, they've come up with allergy, so we're gonna use allergy. And, it just we react differently than normal people to alcohol. We want more. Our body craves more, and that's what it comes down to, the phenomenon of craving. Okay, once we ingest alcohol of any type into our system, we want more.
Yep.
Did I hammer that home enough?
Yes, sure. You did.
I try. So if we work out our solution on a spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he has then a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. The doctor writes, and we'll go on to that in a moment.
Yeah, so a couple of things. This altruistic playing, it's an unselfish service to others, is what they're basically talking about. So this spiritual program, I'll go ahead and call it that at this point, as well as the unselfish service to others. We favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. Even back then, they knew that an alcoholic, when they were under the influence of alcohol, were obviously less likely to adhere and or embrace the program than if they were recently and newly sober and filled with some level of regret and remorse, as well as this stronger desire at that point to want to stop drinking and really want to grab hold of the program. They basically thought and saw that some treatment to begin with was certainly helpful before really jumping into the program, just to make sure that is punctuated. The idea still is today where people do in fact go into certain treatment centers to quote, dry out and get sober and start on a real path of recovery. A lot of the programs that we're talking about have embraced the 12 steps in the AA's program of recovery. Not all, but it certainly is something that helps springboard somebody's attempt at recovery. Rob?
Yep. So let's get into the letter. The doctor writes, the subject presented in this book seems to me to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with alcoholic addiction. I say this after many years' experience as medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcoholic and drug addiction. There was therefore a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly detail in these pages.
Yeah, so it's great introduction. After many years of experience, he's basically talking about his experience as a medical director of the town's hospital and treating alcohol and drug addiction. And he's talking about those that they see in the hospital that are of paramount importance, of these that are afflicted with alcoholic addiction, and that idea is that this person is not responding well to medical and physical treatments, that they are now being sought out and brought into the program of the spiritual program of recovery. Rob?
We doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. What with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we're perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge.
Yeah, and so real quick, we kind of just as we doctors have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics. If you turn to page 162, about a fourth of the way down, it's every few days, this doctor suggests our approach to one of his patients, understanding our work. He can do this with an eye to selecting those who are willing and able to recover on a spiritual basis. And we're really kind of talking about the application presented of difficulties beyond our conception, meaning that the doctor's approach wasn't necessarily working, and they needed to get the spiritual side of things incorporated into the program of recovery for these individuals. Rob?
Yeah, now moral psychology, vital spiritual change. It's ideas, emotions, and attitudes which were once the guiding forces of the lives of these men are suddenly cast to one side, and a completely new set of motives, ideas are on. Leo, what page did you reference? 162.
162. Yeah, page
You're the best. Thank you. So Dr. Young talked with Roland Hazard, and he wanted a religious change to happen to him. Him to join a religious organization, and was hoping that by joining the religious organization, he would change his way of dealing with things. Instead of being selfish and self-centered, he would start thinking about other people. Well, that's what Dr. Silkworth here is talking about, is similar. Whether it was with religion but he needed a complete change in his way of dealing with things. So, and on page 27, it talks about ideas, emotions, and attitudes, which were once the guiding forces. A new set of, and that's what, the spiritual experience is all about. Bill had his white light experience. And, all of a sudden, what can I do for other people instead of what can I get for myself today? Bill was out trying to make money, trying to get more, get more, get more. You know, the stock market crashes, and what happens? He loses everything. He's left with nothing. You know, for a man that you know, whose whole life is all about accumulating things, your whole life is just shattered because you have nothing now. There goes your whole ego, your whole idea. So when you have this white light, Bill was lucky to have a white light experience. Most of us, it's comes slowly. We start thinking about other people. We don't even realize we're doing it. Other people around us notice, boy, Dan's certainly changed. It used to be all about Dan, but now it's all Dan's thinking about other people. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital, and while here, he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application at once. Later, he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgiving, we consented. The cases we have followed through have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness of these men, as we have come to know them, the entire abstinence of profit motive, and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and wearily in this alcoholic field. They believe in themselves and still more in the power which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death.
So we're talking about Bill W., and they came back after having recovered using the program that we now have in Alcoholics Anonymous. They basically were taking that back to the hospital. They were handpicking certain individuals to be a part of this program. And they were largely those that were too far gone and too far gone for medical and or physical um, treatments alone were not helping. Certainly, probably they got the individual sober, but beyond that, it wasn't really working. And so then Bill and his group started coming in and started working with other alcoholics. And I think this is important. One, it was they reluctantly at first let them come back. I think they were a bit weary of what they had and or were going to do, but the idea that they weren't charging any money whatsoever, um, and which was part of the reason I'm sure that they were allowed to come back um, and do what they did. I think it's an interesting dynamic that a hospital would allow laymen or amateurs, if you will. They weren't necessarily professionals to come in and actually administer the program that we now know as Alcoholics Anonymous. I think is something that probably wouldn't be allowed today. I'm guessing. Rob?
Yeah, you know what? You have to really give it to Dr. Silkworth and to Charlie Towns, who own the hospital, for letting Bill try out what he was doing with other people. Now, you're right in the fact that Dr. Silkworth handpicked these people who he thought were ready to have to change. Because some people only came to the treatment center to dry out and then to get everybody off their back, get back out, and they're going to do the same thing over and over again. They're not ready to stop. But there's other people that, they desperately want to stop and don't know how. Bill had an idea. I put a little thing in the chat, and Dr. Silkworth, said he could only help 1 in 100 cases. You know how frustrating that must be?
Yeah.
Like if you're only in it for the money, it's one thing. Doctors aren't in it for the money. Okay. Part of it is, yeah, most doctors make a pretty good living, but they want to help people. And to help 1 in 100 people, how frustrating must it be to go to work each day knowing that the majority of the people that you're working with are going to be back in less than 6 months or dead? I come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I work, when I don't see somebody for a while, and you hear they've gone back out, and you just pray that they get it back into the rooms before it's too late. And then, I think of this doctor who gave his all to help people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of course,
So
an alcoholic.
let's
Oh,
go ahead and
I'm sorry. Yep. Time for Bill.
yep, let's bring Bill in.
Yeah, hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Good job, guys. The stuff that we went through today, the forward to the third and the forward to the fourth edition, basically that's just giving us some statistical information on how AA was growing at the time and what was going on there. A little bit of history stuff there. And like was mentioned, those two forwards were not written by Bill. They were written after Bill passed away. Some kind of editorial committee or an editor or whoever was putting the third and the fourth edition together, but it wasn't written by Bill. And like Rob mentioned, the word "we" is not used in those forwards. The first forward uses the word "we" 18 times, and the second forward uses the word "we" 10 times. Bill Wilson understood this was a "we" program, and he understood the saying that you probably hear in meetings: "I get drunk, we stay sober." When we work with each other, it's a lot easier to stay sober than if you try to do it by yourself. So those two forwards don't have exactly the same stuff in it, and it just shows a little bit of the growth from the forward to the third to the forward to the fourth. AA doubled and the membership doubled, but if you look in the forward to the second edition, it says that the membership was growing at 20% a year. That means in 4 or 5 years they would have doubled. It took 25 years to double between these two forwards, the forward to the third and forward to the fourth. So the membership is starting to slow down or starting to decline. It's not going as fast as it did in the beginning. So there's just something interesting to keep in mind. I don't know exactly why. It may have to do with Zoom. It may have to do with what's ever going on in the world. People are looking at things different, and there's other programs people might be getting involved in. I don't know. But AA is not growing the way it was. Then we get into the doctor's opinion. The doctor's opinion, in my opinion, it's one of the best things in this book because it explains from the medical point of view exactly what's wrong with us. When I came into AA, I knew that if I drank, I needed to drink more. But I didn't understand that was a sickness or an illness. I just thought I didn't have any willpower. I mean, what else would I think? That's what I was told my whole life. You're not using your willpower. I thought that happened to everybody. And according to this doctor, when we get further into the doctor's opinion, he's going to explain that only happens to alcoholics. And he put this here first letter in here, this to whom it may concern letter, and that's on page XXV. And basically what that was supposed to go into a promotional package. That wasn't intended to go into a book. It was going to go into a promotional package that they were sending out to people that they were trying to get donations for AA or for the book. And so he wrote that there, and in the first edition, it didn't have his name in here. It had blank, blank, blank instead of William D. Silkworth, M.D. But the original letter that he wrote, and you can find the letter online, he did have his name in the original letter. They just edited it out for whatever reason, whether Dr. Silkworth didn't want his name in the book or just because it's an anonymous book. And also in the original letter that he wrote, where it says, "I attended a patient," it says it had Bill Wilson's name there. It had William Wilson. So they edited Bill's name out and they edited Dr. Silkworth's name out. So maybe because it's an anonymous volume, or maybe because they didn't want to endorse a town's hospital, whatever. But anyway, he gives a pretty good introduction here on what's going to go on and what these people in AA were doing and how they help people get better. And then right after that first letter, that to whom it may concern letter, there's a few paragraphs, and those were written by Bill. And right at the bottom of that paragraph on page XXVI, it says, we favor hospitalization for an alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. That's one of the most important things you can do for somebody when they're first trying to get sober. You got to get the alcohol out of the alcoholic. If they're still drunk, you're not going to get anywhere with them. We can all probably identify with this. We know ourselves. When we're drinking, I don't care who comes and talks to us, we're not going to listen. The alcohol's telling us what to do, and all we're doing is thinking about where can we get another drink. So you got to get the alcohol out of the alcoholic before you're going to be able to get anywhere with them. And if you're the alcoholic that's trying to get sober, you have to be detoxed. Whether you do it yourself or you go to a detox, and it's a lot safer to go to a medical detox than to try to do it yourself. Because if you go into the DTs, delirium tremens, you can actually die from that. And then it's got this here second statement. A lot of people refer to it as the second letter, whatever you want to call it. That's on page XXVII, right after it says where the doctor writes. And this was intended to be an introduction to the book. This was written to go into the book. Dr. Silkworth wrote this because Bill asked him to write an introduction for the book, and this was going to go into the book. And he basically starts to explain a little bit about what he knows of alcoholism. And we really didn't get too far into this. We just got onto the first page, and he did mention moral psychology in here. And moral psychology, nobody seems to have an exact definition for what that is. Apparently, Dr. Silkworth realized that if alcoholics were more considerate of other people and they were concerned with other people's feelings, they had a better chance of staying sober. Because most alcoholics are very selfish, and all we think about is me, 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 me. And Dr. Silkworth was able to put two and two together, and he realized the people that were selfish and self-centered, after they got detoxed and they left the hospital, they would wind up coming back again in a short period of time because they kept getting drunk over and over and over again. And the people that were more concerned with their families or with other people, they had a tendency to stay sober longer. And some of them didn't relapse at all. So he was using this moral psychology. That was his way of trying to get people to be more caring about others and be less selfish. And that's pretty much what our program tells us. We got to get rid of our selfishness, because if we don't, it's going to kill us. And it tells us that later when we get to chapter 5, that our selfishness is what's going to kill us. And Dr. Silkworth was on the same page with that, because he saw that, and he realized that he was trying to, I guess he was using counseling and therapy to try to help people be less selfish. And he didn't know about the spiritual approach, because obviously he was a doctor and he was using scientific medical methods. But anyway, that's pretty much where we got to and where we left off. So thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Bill.
All right. Close out with the serenity prayer and then open things up a little bit.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.